Hello everybody, it's Shady here, and for today's video I wanted to discuss one of my favourite consoles of all time, the PlayStation 4. It's actually been over 10 years now, last month in fact, in November, so I'm a little bit late on this video. But yeah, I don't know about you guys, but for me, the PS4's turned out to be maybe one of my favourite systems of all time. It might be the greatest console I've made. PS2 is probably still my favourite. The PS4 was a very close contender up there. And obviously, today I kind of give some of my memories of the PS4 and discuss some of my favourite games on the system. But first, I kind of want to give a bit of a history lesson because, to really understand the success and why it was so important, or what's so great about the success of the PS4 and where Sony are now, we have to talk about the PlayStation 3. So obviously, Sony come off the success of the PS2, greatest selling console of all time, and then they decide to launch this system that is uses this weird architecture called the cell architecture, which is notoriously difficult to develop for. Ends up being ridiculously expensive and comes out a year later compared to the competitor. So obviously the Xbox 360 cheapest model versus the most expensive model of the PS4 was almost a £200 difference. I think it was $209 in the UK anyway, for the cheapest 360, and 400 for the 60 gigabyte over here. So yeah, kind of crazy. And then obviously it was difficult to develop for, so developers didn't, the 360 version was always better and was the lead platform for developers. So then Sony kind of had to do this big shift, one that I think massively paid off, and we saw the fruits of that labor with the PS4. The main thing was that they decided we need to invest in our first parties, and let's start developing great first party titles, exclusives of what matter, basically kind of emulating Nintendo in a lot of ways. So, we see Insomniac, Guerrilla, other studios like that. I can't think of any on top of my head right now. But yeah, it was just they had games like Resistance, Ratchet and Clank, Killzone, even strange ones, things like The Puppeteer. You had Mag, massively online game. That was basically a battle royale game before battle royales in a way. And they had just loads of weird and interesting games on the PS3. And then obviously, when it came to the PS4, they realized, we need to make this a affordable system. It has to launch at 350. It has to be friendly, developer friendly, easy to develop for, in other words. We want to make sure that this is the lead platform for this system, or for this generation. So obviously, they get Mark Cerny, who did the PlayStation Vita and did a pretty great job with that system in terms of the architecture and everything. So they decided, we're going to just we're going to take off-the-shelf parts, because typically they used to actually develop specific hardware, because with the PS3 and 360, these were new technologies that were created at the time. That's why they were so bloody expensive. Whereas with these ones, it's we'll just go to AMD, get off-the-shelf parts, chuck it in there. Bob's your uncle. Affordable, easy to develop for, done. And then obviously, on top of that, then they just started making all these great first-party titles. All that momentum from the latter stages of the PS3 came into the PS4. And because they built up that reputation, it just it was so difficult to find, and it just flew off the shelves, and is now I think their second most successful console of all time. I think it's about 120 million units, or just below that or something. So yeah, pretty amazing job there. And obviously, as we know, that just continued on with the PS5 now, which is on 50 million units already, which is kind of crazy. I think it's a little under maybe where they want to be, but still very successful. But obviously, now that I've got the history lesson out of the way, I kind of want to talk about one of my favorite aspects, which was when it comes to the history of the console, actually finding the system. See, because I was a bit of an idiot, and I decided I'm not going to actually pre-order this system. I'll be able to find it day one. It'll be no problem. And then the system releases, and then I can't find it anywhere. And yeah, it's nowhere to be found. So then I remember for about a good month or so, I was just going around. I was after work pretty much every day. I was going into town, hunting all the shops that would sell it, trying to find one. Then I finally managed to get one. I think I went around to everywhere, and I think I went to HMV, which is basically they sell mainly CDs and electronics and all sorts of things like that. And they happened to find one in the back. So I managed to pick that up, and then alongside it, I managed to get, I've got my cat here trying to mess about with my tripod. Come on, what are you doing? But yeah, then I found, I got the PS5, and then I also bought, I think it was Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag and FIFA, what would it have been, 14 at the time? Because yeah, it's always a year ahead, isn't it? Because it came out 2013. And then obviously, after getting it, I remember hooking it up, and then it was just like one of the best experiences ever, finally get to play this thing. And then yeah, it's just hooking it up to my HD TV, getting to see that beautiful 1080p sort of OS. And then yeah, I remember just loving the hell out of it. And then yeah, it was just, great game after great game. And obviously, I want to talk about some of what I think were my favorite experiences on the system, and ones that I think are really great. I got some physical, some, obviously, this is one of the generations where I started buying digital ones as well, so I will talk about some digital ones. Yeah, I think, obviously, one of the first kind of massive exclusives that Sony released for the system was this bad boy, Bloodborne, from Software. From Software, yeah, I know it's a bit of a weird one, but yeah, so obviously, From Software just come off the success of Dark Souls 2. They did Demon Souls with Sony, so obviously Sony approached them and said, we want another exclusive. So they made this masterpiece. So this is basically a Lovecraftian take on the Souls formula. And what makes this game so cool is, first of all, obviously, you got that sort of like gothic horror vibe going on, and it's not as much of a fantasy thing. Obviously, it's definitely more of a horror kind of game in that regard. So that's why I love this game so much. And then on top of that, you get like guns in this game, but it's not like a shooter. You use them to do parrying. So obviously, in the other Souls games, you would be like, you could block with a shield and do all that sort of stuff, and you'd have loads of millions of different weapons and everything. In this one, there's only a few weapons and a few different guns, and it was all about trying to play aggressively and dodging, parrying, and fighting enemies in that way. And it just made for a really cool experience. And it was the first like massive game that you had to buy on the PS4, I remember. And yeah, it was an important one. I remember at the time, a lot of people being upset that this was an exclusive as well. Obviously, there was a lot of people on Xbox and PC who were kind of annoyed, obviously. But it's a Sony game, so it was done by Japan Studios, which is a Sony joint. And yeah, just a great game. Obviously, this is the Game of the Year edition, which is the one you're going to want to pick up. It comes with all the DLC on disc, which was awesome. Yeah, this was the last generation where they actually bothered doing that, where they made releases where everything is actually on the disc. You don't just get a download code, which is bloody irritating. But that's another run anyway. But yeah, that's an awesome one. Next up, we've got one of the games that was just probably my most anticipated game. It's going to be a Final Fantasy game, and that is Final Fantasy 15. This is the Royal Edition, obviously, but yeah, this is such a great game. First of all, before we talk about the game itself, we have to talk about another Final Fantasy game before this, which was Final Fantasy Type 0. Obviously, both of these games were really interesting because they were both supposed to be in the Final Fantasy 13 universe, but they obviously course corrected and became their own things. Type 0 was originally going to be Agito 13, and then became Type 0, was a PSP game and only released in Japan. And then when they finally, for PS4 and Xbox One, and I think PC as well, they finally did the HD version of the game. It was the first big Final Fantasy game to be released. It came with the demo for this game. And it was kind of the reason why everyone picked the game up. I mean, I was just going to buy the game anyway, but then it was a bonus to get, I think it was called Episode Duske or something like that. And yeah, it basically just let you explore a small area of the map. You do some battles, fight a boss. You got a summon as well. It's really cool. Great taster of the game. I just remember spending hours on that demo. What was awesome is that it even had a super boss. I think they like updated it to add the Kotopoulos super boss as well. And then another awesome thing was people managed to go out of bounds and explore more of the map, which is really cool. But yeah, onto the game itself. This is really awesome because this was obviously Square Enix's take on a more Western open world type game. A little bit like an Assassin's Creed in a way. Not quite like that game, but you know, where you just have a giant open world and the majority, it's like this road trip type of game where you're exploring the world of EOS, I think it's called. And the thing is, most of the game is doing all these different side quests and stuff and interacting with NPCs. The thing with this game is, yeah, it's a weird one because story-wise, yes, it is a little light and you know, it's not the strongest in that regard, especially when you compare it with like 13 and 12. But it's still a really freaking good game. I think I'd still suggest picking it up. And obviously, to go into the story a little bit, we're playing as Noctis, who's the prince of Elusia, I think it is. And he's basically with his best buds in the world. They're kind of like his guardian guys, and they're going on a road trip to meet his fiancée when he's going to get married to Lady Lunafreya. And it's basically just about him getting to that area and all the journeys they have on the way. And yeah, the takeaway from this game is it's good to have bros, you know, and friendship is magical, kind of, in a way. But no, it's a great game. And this Royal Edition is awesome because it includes the DLC. Unfortunately, yeah, it is one of them where you get the season pass as a separate code, which is annoying. But I think part of that was because, you know, maybe to save cost, they don't want to print 2 discs, even though they really could have. And they ended up doing that with Final Fantasy VII. And they're going to do that with Rebirth, but for some reason they decided not to do it with this game. But anyway, yeah, it's really awesome. And if you play it on a PS5 or Series X, you can run it at 60 frames a second. If you play it in the light mode, I think it's called. So there's like, there's been loads of different updates and everything to this game. So yeah, if you want to have the true experience, you can still buy the Day 1 edition on disc and keep your internet off and you can play that original experience. But they've added a lot of quality of life changes and all sorts to all the different variations of the game. But yeah, I'd say pick it up. And yeah, you can have a lot of fun. It's a great game. Next up, this is an interesting one. This is a fighting game that I don't think many people remember. And yeah, but it came out relatively early on in the PS3's life. And that is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Eyes of Heaven. This is a really cool one. So basically this is a kind of an arena fighter, you know, your typical anime fighting game, I guess. 2-on-2 as always, similar to like Naruto, what is it called, Ninja Storm or something like that, and the Jujutsu Kaisen game that's going to come out next year as well, that sort of thing. Where it's, but I think in this one, it's not a tag, we all fall on the battlefield at the same time, I think. And then yeah, it's always a 2-on-2. But what's really cool about this game is it has an awesome story mode, which you wouldn't expect. So it's an original story. What's really cool is that it starts off at the end of Stardust Crusaders, where obviously Jotaro's just defeated Dio, and you see him burning Dio's book, the diary, which obviously plays a part in part 6. Obviously I don't want to spoil too much for people who haven't watched JoJo's, because it's amazing and you should watch it. You can probably tell by the name of my channel that I'm a huge JoJo's fan, so I'm not going to spoil it for you. But basically, what happens is it's basically like a Dissidia, if you play Final Fantasy Dissidia. All of the worlds are colliding, and all the JoJo's have to team up to fight all the villains. And you eventually fight a villain who I'm not going to spoil, and believe it or not, it's going to be tough to tell who it is. You'll never guess. But yeah, it's a really cool, solid game. Pick this one up. I don't know how much this is going for at the moment. I mean, I think it was only, yeah, like it says, it was only on PlayStation, and there's no ports or anything. Yeah, unfortunately this one never came to Xbox. Unlike JoJo's All-Star Battle, which was the PS3 360 game, where it eventually got ported to everything recently. I don't know if this one's going to, but still a really solid game. Obviously, next up, I want to talk about another one. This was a massive game because obviously this one was a Kickstarter game. One of the biggest games in Kickstarter. Well, I think it might be the second biggest one now, after another game came out. But yeah, I am talking about Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. This might be one of the best recent Metroidvanias. I know a lot of people like Hollow Knight and stuff like that, but I think this one's awesome. I kind of think we have this one to thank for the modern revival of the Metroidvania. Also, one thing I want to show you before talking about the game is this amazing steelbook I got. What is awesome is, you see that? It's so cool. You can see Miriam there, the main character. And this one is really weird, right? So you have one, because obviously this came to PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. So you get the steelbook, and then you have this little bit of plastic here that just comes out. And that's where you're meant to put your Switch card. So yeah, they couldn't be bothered to make a separate steelbook for the Switch. This was I think this was just like a pre-order bonus game and Amazon and all that. And then basically, what was cool is, I think I went up to visit my sister and just happened to pop into game. And what was cool is they had a copy of it like a couple of days after it came out, and they just gave me the steelbook because they had one spare, which was really cool, which was awesome. I don't know why I didn't pre-order it, because like Symphony of the Night's one of my favorite games of all time. But anyway, as you can imagine, this is basically a spiritual successor to Symphony of the Night. This is obviously made by Igarashi himself, and the composer of Symphony of the Night as well. What's awesome is obviously this is more of a 2.5D type of game. A beautiful art design. Just look at that image, man, it's so cool. And yeah, what's really awesome about the game is, obviously, if you've played Symphony of the Night, there's a lot of really great little Easter eggs and stuff, and I just scared my cat because I dropped this. Yeah, there's a lot of great like Easter eggs and all sorts in the game, and it's just a lot of fun. And then when you complete it, you even unlock like other characters to play as and stuff. And yeah, it's just a solid game. And very similar to Symphony of the Night, it's also like an RPG. You level up. You can get all sorts of new weapons and armors and stuff and create certain builds. What I really loved is I got to kind of make my favorite build from Symphony of the Night in this game, where you have that one sword, I can't remember what it's called in both of them, but it's the one that you can keep tapping the button and she just sort of attacks quickly, or Alucard, whichever game you're playing, and it just lets you do a lot of DPS sort of damage. And then you can have like your kind of summon creatures as well, like you can in that game, and all sorts of stuff like that. So it's a really great game, very solid. Yeah, so a couple more games I want to talk about. Yeah, so I got one here which was a very late release, but an awesome game nonetheless, a remaster, and that is Nier Replicant. So this is basically, if you don't know, you know, if you played Nier Automata, this was the game that came before. It's kind of connected with the Drakengard series if you played it, or Drakengard. Kind of the ending to Drakengard 1 leads into this game, and then one of the endings of this leads into that game. So they're kind of connected in a way. And basically, obviously the original release on the PS4 and 360 was kind of like notoriously bad in a way, in terms of performance and the graphics and all that. But still a cult hit, and it was like still a great game. The story and everything was awesome. It's just the fact that it was just lacking polish, and then basically this remaster just adds that polish. What's really cool is Square Enix also did this in partnership with the amazing Platinum Games, which is kind of cool. Another interesting thing, obviously, you know, they've worked a lot with Platinum Games. Recently they kind of let people know that Platinum Games worked with Final Fantasy 16 as well, which is awesome. So it's really cool. Let's hope that Platinum can do more stuff with Square Enix, as long as it's not Babylon's fault, that is, you know. But anyway, yeah, so basically, obviously they update the visuals massively. I don't know if you can even see, you can probably see a screenshot there. And then on top of that, the battle system is completely revamped, which is what Platinum Games did. They added new story elements, a whole new playthrough as well, where you play as a different character. Don't want to spoil it. And yeah, it's just an amazing game. It's very unique. This is an action RPG. You have like dungeons and everything. The setup of the story is we're playing as the protagonist. Obviously in the PS3 360 version, you played as the father, and the Japanese version on PS3, you played as the brother. And this one is just the brother. Basically, you're trying to save your sister Yona from dying from this disease called Black Scroll, and then it kind of goes on from there. And your first playthrough, just like Nier Automata, is only the beginning of the story, and then you have to keep playing it. I think you need about 4 different endings to kind of unlock everything and know what's truly happened. And yeah, it's awesome. Great game. One of the best. A couple of games I want to talk about that I don't have physical versions of that were really, really awesome as well. One I thoroughly enjoyed early on was Life is Strange. You can actually get a physical copy of this, but I just picked it up digitally when it pretty much first came out. I remember they had a free demo available. I think it was just it was basically just the setup of the game, which you got to play for free. And I remember playing that and being like, this is really awesome. It's kind of like a take on the whole Telltale's kind of formula. And then I just picked up the season pass and then played every episode when it was available, and freaking loved it. And what I like about it is it kind of gets, it's kind of almost a like a breakdown or critique of those types of games, a deconstruction, if you will, of that particular type of formula of game, which is really cool. Don't want to spoil too much. But obviously we're playing as Max Crawford, I think her name is. She's a photographer student, college, I guess they call it in America, but it's uni, you know what I mean? And then yeah, she meets an old friend, and then she has this power where she can rewind time, which obviously plays a part because this is one of those games where you're selecting different options from dialogue trees and it changes events, but you can rewind time to do things differently if you want to, and then it plays out in the conclusion of the game. Really solid, great game, definitely worth picking up. Next, obviously, I want to talk about a really great horror game as well. The Evil Within, which was Shinji Mikami's kind of revival of the horror franchise. It was like his kind of take on Resident Evil. He did this with Grasshopper Manufacturer, or Grasshopper Studio, whatever they're called. He's left them now, unfortunately. But yeah, he was working with them alongside Bethesda, who produced the game. Basically, this is like, it's very interesting horror game because it takes like kind of elements from modern games in a lot of ways. Like when it comes to the over-the-shoulder shooting, you have like a cover system, stealth system. You're basically having to fight loads of hordes of enemies and all that sort of stuff. But what's really cool, it does a really interesting thing, right? Which was weird at the time, but I kind of also love at the same time, where you kind of had the black borders either side, top and the bottom, so you're seeing less of the screen, but it's to add this kind of grindhouse cinematic feel to the game, and you have like that kind of grainy filter as well going on, and really cool stuff. Yeah, it's just a really solid game. We're playing as Sebastian, can't remember his second name, but you've been called to this, I think it's a hospital where bad stuff has happened, and you're basically trying to investigate what happened. You see loads of people dead. Ends up with you being in this like kind of strange world. Then yeah, you just have to fight loads of different enemies, and yeah, it's just a really cool story and a lot of fun. You're gonna die a lot. I remember when I played the game, it shows you how many times you died at the end, and I think I died like 150 times in the game. But when you die, it loads quick and you just continue on anyway, so it's fine. But it's a really cool game, and it has an even more awesome sequel as well. And what's great about that sequel is it almost kind of addresses a lot of kind of the issues of the first game in a lot of way, and it really it feels like a good nod to Silent Hill, that one, because there's a mix of both Resident Evil and Silent Hill in both of the games and other horror games. A lot of great nods to horror movies. A lot of the voice actors in the movies are people who've been in horror movies. Like one of the characters, Kidman, is voiced by the girl who played Emily Rose in The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and loads of things like that. And yeah, both games, the first game, sorry, I can't remember the second one does, but the first one has loads of great DLCs as well. Yeah, it's just a really great game. Remember, that was one I picked up day one and absolutely loved, so yeah. And I want to talk about what I think next is one of my favorite games. Probably not my favorite Resident Evil game, but I think it was one of the most important, and that is Resident Evil 7. So yeah, this game was a big deal. To put it into perspective, obviously Resident Evil 6 came out, and unfortunately, I think it's an alright game, but it's not what people wanted from a Resident Evil game. It was way too action-based. I think they were, like, Capcom even said themselves, they were really trying to appeal to more like the Call of Duty crowd, which is dumb as hell, why you would say that about a Resident Evil game. And then obviously they did bring out the Revelations games. I think Revelations 1 was before 6 and 2 was after. Revelations 2 is really good. Both of them are awesome games, but unfortunately it was kind of like forgotten because it was released as an episodic thing and all that. So it probably didn't feel like quite what people wanted from a Resident Evil game. But then they released this bad boy. So this is basically like a soft reboot of the series in a lot of ways. This one goes back to its follower roots. It says at the back, horror comes home. It's probably backwards when you see it on there, so you have to take my word on it. But yeah, so this is basically like the original Resident Evil, but set in like the deep south Louisiana in America. It's kind of got this whole Texas Chainsaw meets Evil Dead vibe, and the game is in first person as well. That's why you have the option for VR. What's really cool about being first person is, maybe people know this or not, but one of the things I wanted to do with the original Resident Evil was make it in first person, so they kind of got to do that with this game. And similar to 15, this also had an awesome demo. You got it for free though, you didn't have to buy another game, called The Beginning Hour, which was awesome. But before that, they actually released this other demo called Kitchen, which I think was a VR demo, I'm not sure. And that was basically the development name of 7. So they released Kitchen, and what was really cool is then I think at stage at one of the E3s they showed Kitchen, and then they revealed it's actually Resident Evil 7. And obviously what was really cool obviously was obviously PT, if people know, which was playable teaser, which was meant to be Kojima's take on Silent Hill, which was cancelled. You know, because this came out and was also first person, it kind of, for a lot of people, it was like, oh, we get to actually have kind of a cool first person horror game now, which is awesome. What's great though is in the teaser demo, the beginning hour, they kind of fool you into thinking it's like a supernatural thing when it's not at all. You see this ghost girl in the game who's just not in the game at all. Really cool. But obviously, yeah, it's just your standard Resident Evil sort of thing. Basically, Ethan's wife, Mia, has gone missing. Well, he thinks she's dead. He gets this message, and then he drives down from Louisiana. This is the craziest part. He goes from New York all the way down to Louisiana to find his wife. And then he goes to the Baker estate, which is the name of the family, the Baker family. That guy there is Jack Baker, who's like, kind of like the main villain of the game, or one of anyway. And then he basically has to try to escape this place with Mia. And it's pretty much, you know, near enough beat for beat for the original Resident Evil in a lot of ways. And it's just a great freaking game. Unfortunately, I've never played it in VR because I don't have PS4 VR. That's one thing I'd like to do. Yeah, thankfully because of this game and its success, the Resident Evil franchise is kind of rebooted and back to its best, where you know, where it belongs, and is up there as one of the great series again, really. And yeah, obviously, just this year we had the Resident Evil 4 remake. Apparently Resident Evil 9 is on the way. They've even announced they're doing another Resident Evil remake, possibly Code Veronica or Resident Evil 5. I have to wait and see. And yeah, can't wait to see what they do with the series. But obviously, you know, these are just a few of the many great games that the PS4 had. You know, as one of the best libraries of all time, I think. And obviously, 3 years into PS5, it's still a great time to get a PS4, and they're still releasing games on the PS4. Freaking next month, Yakuza 8 is coming to PS4. You know, we've got Metaphor, Re Fantasio, Persona 3 Reload, you know, tons of other great games are all still coming to the PlayStation 4, so it's still a great time to pick one up. And obviously there's like 3 main models basically if you're looking to get one. So we have the original model, which is what I had originally, and then unfortunately that broke down, and then yeah, I eventually got another model. But yeah, then they have the Slim and the Pro, which is what they released next. The Pro is the model I got afterwards, which is a great one, probably the one I would suggest buying. So yeah, the original model came with a 500GB hard drive, which is not a lot really, because you have to install every game, and games are roughly about 50GB. So yeah, I would suggest just picking up PS4 Pro. That comes with a 1TB hard drive, and you're going to be sorted. What's great about the Pro is it was designed to work with 4K sets, 4K TVs. So you'll be able to just hook it up to your modern TV, and you get some performance boosts and some resolution boosts in games. So it's really cool. And obviously you can do 4K streaming on Netflix and things like that as well, which is awesome. But yeah, it's a great system, and I'm hoping that in, you know, maybe another 7 years we can look back at the PS5 and say it was as good, if not better, than the PS4. And yeah, I just can't wait to see what Sony have got coming next. You know, they just seem to keep releasing great games and just winning constantly. You know, they're top, or you know, they're one of the best in the console business because, you know, they are where they are now because of everything they did with the PS4, and it's brought them back to where they should be. And you know, they seem to be going back on some of these silly decisions, like making all these dumb live service games and that sort of stuff, which is good to see. And you know, we'll be seeing new leadership for PlayStation soon, so I really can't wait to see who that is and what plans they have going for the future. And yeah, they're all that, just keep making those great first party games, you know, that's all people want. And please, 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 can we get a Bloodborne remastered? It's not too much to ask, all right? Anyway, this has been me, Shady. It's been great, and hopefully I will catch you guys in the next one. And if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe if you want to. If not, that's cool, and I'll catch you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day.